Everyone. So in this part of video we are going to continue the electrochemistry. So in the last video of discuss what is electrochemical cell, what is electrochemical series, okay, and also what are the concentration cells, electrode concentration cells and electrolytic concentration cells, Nernst equation, okay, and applications of Nernst equation all we discussed in the last video. Now let us continue further. So in this video we mainly discuss Kohlrausch law and applications of Kohlrausch law, and after that electrolysis. So in the last video we discussed electrochemical cells. Now in this video we are going to discuss electrolysis, and after electrolysis batteries and polishing. So these are the four parts we are going to cover in this video. So let us continue. Kohlrausch law. Yes, what is the Kohlrausch law? So as we know in the last video we discussed what about the conductance, specific conductance, equivalent conductance, molar conductance, and what are the factors on which the conductances depends, all we discuss. So once you go through that, now Kohlrausch law, what the Kohlrausch law indicates. According to the Kohlrausch law, the simple statement of Kohlrausch law is the equivalent conductance of at infinite dilution. Equivalent conductance at infinite dilution. We are representing with cap naught. Equivalent conductance at infinite dilution. Kohlrausch law. The equivalent conductancy at infinite dilution. We represent the equivalent conductance at infinite dilution with cap naught of any electrolyte. Okay. So is equal to the sum of equivalent conductances of cation and anions. That is a simple statement of Kohlrausch law. So once again, according to the Kohlrausch law, the equivalent conductancy at infinite dilution of any electrolyte is equal to the sum of equivalent conductances at infinite dilutions of both cation and anion. Okay, that is what we call as Kohlrausch law. Now this is in case of equivalent conductancy. According to this statement, let us apply this for few examples. For example, equivalent conductance at infinite dilution of NaCl is equal to equivalent conductancy of Na plus and equivalent conductancy of Cl minus. Similarly, equivalent conductancy of Na2SO4 is equal to equivalent conductancy of Na plus and equivalent conductancy of sulfate ions. You just add the sum of both. No need of these coefficients. You don't add 2 moles and 1 mole, no need to consider. Just the sum of equivalent conductancy of cation and anion present in it. Sometimes what happens, instead of giving the equivalent conductances, they may give you molar conductances of both cation and anion. In case of giving the molar conductances, so suppose if the molar conductances, if they have given, then equivalent conductancy at infinite dilution of any electrolyte is equal to, so I am representing equivalent conductances with cap and molar conductancy with lambda. So please remind that one. So equivalent conductancy of an electrolyte cap naught is equal to 1 by Q plus and molar conductancy of cation and 1 by Q minus molar conductancy of anion. See here, Q plus and Q minus. What are Q plus, Q minus? They are nothing but the charge, magnitude of charges of cation and anion. Okay. So accordingly, for example, if you wanted to calculate the same, equivalent conductancy of Na2SO4 is equal to, how you can write Na, how the Na2SO4 will split 2 Na plus ions and SO4 minus 2 ions. What is the charge over the cation? 1. So 1 by 1, no need. So molar conductancy of Na plus ion plus, what is the charge over the anion here? Minus 2. So it will be what? 1 by 2 molar conductancy of sulfate ion. So like this, by giving the molar conductances of cation and anion, you can calculate what? Equivalent conductancy of any electrolyte. And one more thing, sometimes what happens, they may give you the molar conductancy of ions and ask you to calculate the molar conductancy at infinite dilution of that electrolyte. So if they ask you the molar conductance, that is lambda naught of any electrolyte is equal to n plus molar conductancy of cation and n minus molar conductancy of anion. Here what is n plus and n minus? Here n plus is nothing but the number of cations that they furnish and n minus is nothing but the number of anions that they furnish. For example, same example you take, that is lambda naught of Na2SO4 is equal to, so Na2SO4 gives how many of Na plus ions? 2 Na plus ions. So that we can write 2 into molar conductancy of Na plus ion and 1 molar conductancy of sulfate ion. So this is what the calculation of molar conductance at infinite dilution of an electrolyte by using molar conductancy of both cation and anion. From the above all relations, we can give the relation to the equivalent conductancy and the molar conductancy. According to them, see the molar conductancy at infinite dilution of any electrolyte, lambda naught is equal to equivalent conductancy into its n factor. Okay, by using this formula, we can easily convert the equivalent conductancy into molar conductancy into equivalent conductancy. Okay, so this is about the Kohl-Rosch law. Okay, let us move to the applications of Kohl-Rosch law. Applications of Kohl-Rosch law. Yes, what are the main applications of Kohl-Rosch law? The main application, the first and the main application of this Kohl-Rosch law is, by following this Kohl-Rosch law, we can calculate the equivalent conductancy at infinite dilution of weak electrolyte also. Okay, not only the strong electrolytes, by following this Kohl-Rosch law, we can calculate the equivalent conductancy of weak electrolytes. So that is the first one. We can calculate cap naught or cap infinity of weak electrolytes. So that is the first application of this one. The second application, for example, I wanted to calculate the cap naught of ammonium hydroxide. It is a weak base and weak electrolyte. We wanted to calculate it. How can we calculate? We can calculate this by using strong electrolytes. What are the strong electrolytes I am going to use? Cap naught of ammonium chloride, cap naught of NaOH and cap naught of NaCl. So these three are what? Strong electrolytes. By using these three strong electrolytes, I am going to calculate the equivalent conductancy of weak electrolyte. Let's see how. That is, cap naught of ammonium hydroxide is equal to the cap naught of ammonium chloride plus cap naught of NaOH minus cap naught of NaCl. Now, as we know, according to the Kohl-Rosch law, equivalent conductancy of an electrolyte is equal to the sum of equivalent conductancies of their ions. So, what you can write? This you can write as cap naught of NH4 plus cap naught of Cl minus plus cap naught of Na plus cap naught of OH minus cap naught of Na minus cap naught of Cl minus. Now, cap naught of Cl minus, here both will be cancelled and Na plus also cancelled. What is remaining? That is nothing but cap naught of NH4 plus cap naught of OH minus. They are nothing but the cation and anion of ammonium hydroxide. So like this, by using this Kohl-Rosch law, we can calculate what? Cap naught of weak electrolyte. That is the first advantage application. The second application of this is by using this Kohl-Rosch law, we can calculate the degree of dissociation. We can calculate degree of dissociation. Yes, degree of dissociation we represent with alpha, as we know. In ionic equilibrium, chemical equilibrium, we discuss degree of dissociation. Yes, how can we calculate the degree of dissociation? It is nothing but the degree of dissociation is nothing but the ratio between cap C to cap naught. Cap C to the cap naught is nothing but equivalent conductancy at a particular concentration. Cap C is nothing but at that particular concentration, whatever the equivalent conductancy, that is called cap C. At infinite dilution we represent called cap naught. So the ratio between cap C to the cap naught we consider as what? Degree of dissociation. And once we know this degree of dissociation, we can calculate the dissociation constant. What is the formula for the dissociation constant? K is equal to C alpha square. Okay, ionic equilibrium we discussed now. Dissociation constant K is equal to C alpha square. Where C is equal to concentration and alpha is equal to what? Degree of dissociation. That is the second application. And the third application of this Kohlrausch law, we can calculate the solubility of salt. Solubility of the salt we can calculate now. Yes, how can we calculate? As we know, what is the relation to the molar conductancy to the specific conductancy? Molar conductancy, that is lambda m is equal to specific conductancy K into 1000 by molarity. Remember now, lambda m molar conductancy is equal to specific conductancy into 1000 by molarity. Now as we know, in the place of molarity what we can write? Solubility we can write. So solubility is nothing but what? Molarity. So in the place of molarity, solubility you can substitute. Now you bring solubility to this side, then solubility is equal to K salt, specific conductancy of salt into 1000 by what? Lambda m. So by using this formula we can calculate what? Solubility. Sometimes what happen, they may give you solubility and ask you to calculate the molar conductance. Sometimes what happen, instead of giving the solubility, they may give you solubility product. We know solubility product in ionic equilibrium. Ksp is equal to, what is that? Solubility product is equal to x power x into y power y into s power x plus y. Okay, by using that formula we can convert Ksp into solubility into Ksp. Okay, so this is the third application. And the fourth and the last final application of this Kohlrausch law is we can determine the ionic mobility of both cation and anion. Yes, what is ionic mobility? We represent it with mu. Ionic mobility we represent it with mu. So how can we calculate? So it is nothing but mu plus, means ionic mobility of cation is equal to lambda by Farad. Just to divide this with 96,500, you will get ionic mobility of any ion. So mu plus is equal to cap plus by Faraday, mu minus is equal to cap minus by Faraday. So by using this, you can calculate ionic mobilities. So this is about the Kohlrausch law. Let us discuss electrolysis and what is the electrolytic cell and the laws which are related to the electrolysis. Okay. So in the electrolysis, what is meant by electrolysis? As we already discussed, electrochemical cell and electrolytic cell. What is the difference between the electrochemical cell and electrolytic cell? Electrochemical cell is nothing but the conversion of chemical energy into electrical energy. Okay, so that cell we call it as electrochemical cell. Electrolytic cell means conversion of electrical energy into chemical energy. Okay, and the cell which we are doing this electrolysis we call it as what? Electrolytic cell. Okay, simply how you define this electrolysis? Electrolysis is nothing but just take the electrolytic solution. You insert the two electrodes, one will act as anode, another one will act as a cathode. And if you pass the electricity through the electrolytic solution, what will happen? The substances will attract towards electrodes and there they deposit. And this deposition or accumulation of the substance at electrodes by passing the electricity, we call it as what? Electrolysis. Okay, so it is nothing but the deposition or accumulation accumulation of substance at electrodes by passing electricity through electrolytic solution is called electrolysis. And the cell we are doing this electrolysis, we call this cell, we call it as what? Electrolytic cell. Electrolytic cell. What is the main role of this electrolytic cell? Which converts electrical energy into chemical energy. That is the main role of this electrolytic cell. And one more thing, the main difference between electrochemical cell and electrolytic cell is what? Electrodes. There in electrochemical cell, anode is nothing but what? Negative. Whereas here, anode is positive. That means the electrode which is connected to positive terminal of external source or external battery. Okay, so this is what we call as anode. And whereas cathode, what is a cathode? It is nothing but negative terminal. The electrode which is connected to negative terminal of external battery. Okay, so that electrode we call as what? Cathode. But the process, the reaction is same. At anode oxidation takes place, at a cathode reduction only takes place. There was no change in the chemical reaction. Only the polarities are different. Okay, next one. As we know, suppose when you pass the electricity, anions are attracted towards anode and they undergo oxidation, and the cations are attracted by the cathode, there they undergo reduction and they are deposited. Suppose in the electrolytic solution, if there was only one cation and one anion, there was no problem. Suppose if the solution has two or more than two anions or two or more than two cations, then which cation or which anion will deposit first? So that should decide based upon the discharge potential. So if you know the discharge potential, the order of discharge potential I am drawing here. The order of discharge potential. The order of discharge potential of, first I am writing anions. Okay, discharge potential of anions. So which is having highest discharge potential? So that is what? Fluoride is having the highest discharge potential among all. After fluoride, sulfate, nitrate, hydroxide, chloride, bromide, iodide. And one point you should remember, you don't think that the ion which is having more discharge potential will deposit first. That is wrong. Actually, among the ions, the ion which is having the less discharge potential will deposit first. So suppose if there was a solution having both OH and I minus, among the two which is having the less I minus, so definitely first which will deposit? I minus will deposit. So here you should remember the ion whose discharge potential is less will deposit first. So that is about the discharge potentials of anions. Coming to the cations, if you the order of discharge potential of cations, if you see discharge potential of cations, if you see, so as we know, 1A group elements and 2A group elements are having high discharge potential value. So first of all, lithium, potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, nickel, tin, lead, hydrogen, copper, silver, gold, mercury and platinum. So this is what order of discharge potentials of cations. So if there was two or more than cations, then the cation which is having lesser discharge potential will deposit first. So this is about the discharge potentials. Now let us discuss Faraday's laws. Faraday's laws. So there was two laws related to this electrolysis. Okay, the first one is Faraday's first law. Yes, what is Faraday's first law? According to the Faraday's first law, the amount of the substance deposited at electrodes is directly proportional to the quantity of electricity that we pass. That is, the amount of substance that I am considering as W. W is directly proportional to what? Q. This is what quantity of electricity that we produce. Since we know that quantity of electricity is nothing but the current into time. So where current, C is nothing but current. This is in amperes and time is in seconds. Okay, Q is equal to Ct. If you substitute there, then W is proportional to what? Ct. If you remove this proportionality, W is equal to ECT. So where E is equal to what? Electrochemical equivalent. Electrochemical equivalent. What do you mean by the electrochemical equivalent? It is nothing but the amount of the substance that was deposited at electrodes when we pass 1 coulomb of electricity. When we pass 1 coulomb exactly, whatever the substance, whatever the amount of the substance that was deposited at electrodes, that amount we called as what? Electrochemical equivalent. According to the definition, E is equal to E by F you can write. Why? Because 1 Faraday always will deposit 1 gram equivalent. So if you divide this equivalent weight with Faraday's 96,500 coulombs, we will get electrochemical equivalent. Now just substitute that. Then W is equal to weight of the substance deposited at electrodes. W is equal to ECT by F. ECT by F, where E is equal to what? Equivalent weight, current amperes, time in seconds. F is nothing but Faraday, that is equal to 96,500. And as we know, E is nothing but equivalent weight is equal to molecular weight divided by M factor. So you can write this as W is equal to MCT by NF. MCT by NF, where N is equal to what? It's valency factor. Okay, so this is what the formula that was given by Faraday's first law. Here one point you should remember. It's directly the amount of the substance that was deposited at electrodes will always be directly proportional to what? Quantity of electricity that we supply. If you supply more quantity of electricity, more amount of the substance will deposit. If you supply lesser amount of the quantity, then lesser amount of the substance only will deposit. Next, let us move to the second law. Second law. According to the first law, only second law we can explain. Let us see. W is equal to what? What is the formula? W is equal to MCT by NF. MCT by NF. You bring M2 here. Okay. Or else, if you supply, we have a formula. See, take this equation. W is equal to ECT by F. Take this equation. If you supply the same quantity of electricity, else you bring E to this side. Okay, or else when you supply the same quantity of electricity through different electrolytic solutions, that means this Q is the same. Okay, then W is directly proportional to equivalent weight. That means if you are taking 2 or more than 2 electrolytic solutions, then what we can write? W1 is to, W2 is to, W3 is equal to E1 is to, E2 is to, E3. That is the same second law. So what is the statement of second law? When you supply the same quantity of electricity through 2 or more than 2 electrolytic solutions, then the ratio of masses of the substances deposited at electrodes at the corresponding electrodes is in the same ratio of their equivalent weights. W1, W2, W3 is equal to E1 is to E2 is to E3, where E1, E2, E3 are what? Equivalent weight of those substances. And one more thing you can say that from this equation, see that W is equal to mCt by Nf, right? Now you bring m to this side, that is W by molar mass is equal to Ct by Nf, Ct by Nf. Suppose if you pass the same quantity of electricity, what you can write, W by m is nothing but what? Weight by molar mass. What is it? Number of moles. So from that we can write as number of moles. Moles is a direct or inversely proportional to the N factor, valency factor. That means when you are comparing the two or more than two electrolytic solutions, that is mole 1, moles of the first solution divided by moles of the second solution is equal to N2 by N1. That means valency factor of the second solution to the valency factor of first solution. So this is very, very important. They may ask you not only weight ratio, they may ask you moles ratio also. Okay, and here few points you should remember. 1 Faraday always will deposit 1 gram equivalent weight. 1 Faraday always will deposit how much amount of the substance? It's equal to 1 gram equivalent weight of the substance. And 1 Faraday is nothing but the charge carried by 1 mole of electrons. So how many of electrons? Charge carried by 1 mole of the electron. 1 mole has how many electrons? Avogadro number of electrons, and the charge over the each electron is 1.602 into 10 power minus 19. If you multiply both, 1 Faraday is equal to 96,500 coulombs. Okay, so this is about the Faraday's relation. Okay, move to the batteries. So batteries are nothing but electrochemical cells. So batteries are two types. Those are primary batteries, secondary batteries. Okay, 1 degree, 2 degree. Primary batteries are nothing but single usage batteries. So also we call it as unrechargeable. We cannot recharge them again. Unrechargeable batteries. Secondary batteries, these are multiple usage battery. So also we call it as rechargeable batteries. Rechargeable batteries. Two types of batteries: unrechargeable batteries or single usage batteries. The second one is rechargeable batteries. So what are the examples for the primary batteries and secondary batteries? For primary batteries, the best two examples are Leclanche cell, also called dry cell, and the Mercury cell. These are the two cells examples for primary batteries. So what are the examples? One is Leclanche cell, also called dry cell, and the second one is what? Mercury cell. These are the two examples for primary batteries. Secondary batteries examples, so that is what? Lead storage batteries, and the second one is nickel cadmium battery. These are the two batteries. Okay, so let us discuss the first one, dry cell. Also we call it as Leclanche cell. As I told you, it is a primary type of battery. It is a primary type of cell. Primary type of cell means it is an unrechargeable and single usage cell. Once the chemical reaction is over, we cannot reuse it again. Okay, so use and throw batteries. So what is the reactions going on in the Leclanche cell? So if you take the anode, so what is the anode in Leclanche cell? So it is nothing but zinc container. So the anode in Leclanche cell is what? Zinc container. And the cathode, what is the cathode in Leclanche cell? It is nothing but graphite rods coated with MnO2. Coated with what? Maybe manganese oxide. So graphite rods coated with MnO2. Then what is the electrolytic solution? electrolytic solution. So electrolytic is here, electrolytic solution is the paste of ammonium chloride and zinc chloride. This paste they are using as what? Electrolytic solution for every cell. For all these four types of cells, you should know what is the anode, what is the cathode, what is the electrolytic solution. Okay. So here anode is zinc container, cathode is a graphite rod coated with MnO2, and electrolytic solution is the paste of ammonium chloride and zinc chloride. Let us see what is the reaction. At anode, as I already told you, anode oxidation only takes place. At anode, what happened? Zinc is undergoing oxidation. Zn plus 2 plus 2 electrons. Next, at cathode, what process takes place? Reduction process will take place. So this MnO2 will react with these ammonium ions, okay, and they forms what? Manganese hydroxide. That is manganese oxyhydroxide. Okay, and so this is the products we got. So overall reaction, if you write the overall reaction, what happened? These two electrons will be cancelled out. So what is remaining? Zinc plus MnO2 plus NH4 plus gives rise to MnOOH plus Zn plus 2 plus NH3. This is the overall reaction. So here manganese oxidation state. So they may ask you the question. So during the Leclanche cell, in Leclanche cell, what is the change in oxidation state of manganese? So the manganese oxidation state is changing from +4 to +3. +4 to +3. Remember that. +4 to +3. So this is about what? Leclanche cell. And if you take the voltage, what is the voltage of this Leclanche cell? It will be 1.2 to 1.35 volts. Okay, actually in some books 1.1 to 1.25 they given. In some books up to 1.35 also they given. Okay, anyhow remember this range 1.1 to 1.35 range voltage they will provide. Okay, this is about the dry cell. Next, move to the next one, mercury cell. Mercury cell. Yes, it is also primary type of battery. No doubt. Why? Because it's a single usage battery, unrechargeable battery. Next, coming to the anode. What is the anode in mercury cell? So anode is zinc amalgam, zinc Hg, zinc amalgam. Okay. Next, cathode. What is the cathode here? So here the cathode is mercuric oxide plus carbon. Means graphite rods. Here the coated with mercuric oxide. Next, what is the electrolytic solution here? Electrolytic solution is aqueous KOH solution. Aqueous KOH solution will act as what? Electrolytic solution. Let us see the reaction at anode. What reaction takes place? Oxidation reaction. So here, so let the anode zinc undergoes oxidation. Zinc converted into zinc oxide, ZnO plus H2O plus 2 electrons. Now at a cathode, the mercuric oxide will take these electrons to H2O and 2 electrons, and they come out as what? Hg plus 2OH minus. So the overall reaction is what? H2O 2 electrons, H2O 2 electrons, and a 2OH will cancel out. So what is the remaining equation? Zn plus HgO gives rise to ZnO plus Hg. So if you see that there was no ions in the final overall reaction. No ions. Because of no ions in the overall reaction, this mercury cell maintains the same potential throughout their lifetime. So it maintains, there is a speciality of this mercury cell. It maintains same voltage throughout their lifetime. Because of, what is the reason why they are maintaining the same potential throughout their lifetime? Because there was no ions in the overall reaction. And if you take a voltage, what is the voltage of voltage produced by this one, that is 1.35 volts. So the voltage of this mercury cell is 1.35. Yes, let us we move to the secondary battery, that is what? Lead storage battery. Lead storage battery. So lead storage battery, as we know, the batteries that we are using in inverters, okay, is a lead storage battery only. So the voltage, it will produce 6 volts to 12 volts. So the voltage is very high, 6 to 12 volts of potential different electricity they will generate. Yes, let us see. So what is this lead storage battery? So as I told you, this is a secondary type of battery. Secondary type means it is a rechargeable battery. Rechargeable battery. Okay. And it is a reversible. So we can discharge the electricity and also we can recharge them. Okay, let us see. What is the anode cathodes here? So here in lead storage battery, spongy lead act as what? Anode, and cathode. So a grid of lead packed with lead oxide. Okay, grid of lead packed with lead oxide will act as cathode, and its electrolytic solution is 38% H2SO4 solution. 38% H2SO4 is using as what? Electrolytic solution. Let us see the reaction. At anode, oxidation will take place. That is what? Pb will take sulfate ions from here and it will come out as PbSO4 and 2 electrons. So lead is undergoing what? Oxidation. Next, at cathode reduction will take place. What will reduce lead oxide? PbO2 will take one more sulfate, that is what? 4H plus ions and a sulfate ion plus 2 electrons. Finally, they produces PbSO4 and what is remaining? PbSO4 and 2H2O will produce. So if you see the overall reaction see that is Pb and PbO2 and 4H plus 2SO4 minus 2. Total 2 moles of H2SO4 gives rise to 2 moles of PbSO4 plus 2H2O. That means here in this discharging of this lead storage battery, this is a reaction taking place in discharging means when we are extracting the current from the lead storage battery. During the discharging, lead and lead oxide both are converting into lead sulfate. And how many moles of lead sulfate will produces? 2 moles of lead sulfate will produces. And how many moles of H2SO4 they will consume? 2 moles of H2SO4 they consume. So during discharging, what happens in the H2SO4? Consumption takes place. So slowly by the reaction going on, the concentration of this electrolytic solution will decreases. So based upon the decreasing the density or concentration of that, we can identify that battery is going to be discharged fully. And during the recharge, suppose if you recharge it again, what will happen? Reverse reaction will take place. Reverse reaction takes place during recharge. They may ask you, during the recharge of the lead storage battery, what will happen? Simple. The lead sulfate, 2 moles of lead sulfates will use what? Lead and lead oxide. And also how many moles? 2 moles of H2SO4 they generates. Okay, so this is what? Discharging and recharging of lead storage battery, and it produces 6 to 12 volts of electricity. And we are using it in inverters and car batteries. So these all are nothing but lead storage batteries only. Let us we move to the fourth cell, that is what? Nickel cadmium cell. Nickel cadmium cell. Yes, what is this nickel cadmium cell? It is also secondary type of cell. Secondary type means it is a rechargeable cell. And what is the anode here? Here anode is cadmium, okay, and cathode is nickel oxide, and the electrolytic solution is aqueous KOH. Let us see what is the reactions going on at anode. At anode, cadmium is undergoing oxidation and converting into cadmium hydroxide by liberation of 2 electrons. Next, at cathode, what happened? Nickel oxide will take aqueous KOH. Aqueous KOH means there should be some water molecule. So water and electrons. So they converted into what? Nickel hydroxide. See, one point you should remember, both cadmium is converting into cadmium hydroxide, nickel is also converting into nickel hydroxide. That is the speciality of this one. So if you add this one, 2 cancel. So what is the remaining final equation? That is what? Cadmium plus NiO2 plus H2O plus 2OH minus gives rise to nickel hydroxide, cadmium hydroxide. That is the overall reaction. Okay, so this is a nickel cadmium cell, and here the voltage is 1.6 volts around it will produces 1.6 volts. Okay, so this nickel cadmium cell is very costly. Okay, because of its high cost. Okay, these nickel cadmium cells are using in costly watches. Okay, costly branded watches. They use this nickel cadmium cell. Okay, let us move to the next one. Fuel cell. What is the speciality of these fuel cells? So one thing is, so fuel cell is a green cell. You don't think that it's a green in color. Green cell means what? No pollution. Green cell means, so there was no pollution with this fuel cell. There was no pollution. Okay. So and one more advantage of these fuel cells are, okay, they are 70% more efficient than batteries. So when you compare these batteries, primary batteries, secondary batteries, and these fuel cells are how much percentage more? 70% more. Because of its 70% more efficiency and because of its greenness, means because of no pollution, nowadays we are all going to depend on what? Fuel cells. Best examples for fuel cell is hydrogen oxygen fuel cell. So in hydrogen oxygen fuel cell, hydrogen and oxygen will react together and they produces water. So there was no disadvantage with this formed product, and we can use them for drinking purpose also. That is why there was no harmful byproducts producing in this fuel cells. Not only hydrogen oxygen fuel cell, hydrocarbon oxygen fuel cells also, there was no harmful byproducts. That is why they are green cell and having more efficiency. Okay, after the fuel cells, let us discuss next one, corrosion. So if you see the corrosion, so corrosion is nothing but rusting of metals. We call it as what? Corrosion. So this corrosion is one of the surface phenomena. This is a phenomenon that is taking place at the surface of the metals. And here in this corrosion there was one more speciality. In this corrosion, both anode and cathode, they both are on the same metal surface. Okay, anode to cathode, they both are in surface of metal. Okay, so if you see the reactions at anode, what will happen? Let us see. At anode, oxidation of iron takes place. That means Fe will undergo oxidation and they produces electrons. Oxidation of iron takes place. At cathode, what reaction takes place? Remember that at cathode, the reverse the reverse of oxidation of water will take place, or simply we can say that the reduction of oxygen will take place. Reduction of oxygen means, suppose the O2, reduction means addition of H plus ion, that is H plus 4 electrons gives rise to water molecules, 2H2O will produces. Understood? So this is what conversion of H2O to O2 is called, what we call oxidation. H2O into O2, removal of hydrogen, what we call oxidation. So this is called oxidation. So reverse of oxidation of water, reverse of oxidation of water or reduction of oxygen, both were same. So that is taking place at a cathode, and if you write the overall reaction, what happened? So two electrons will be cancelled here, 2 moles may produces, not a problem. So finally Fe plus O2 plus 4H plus, finally what iron is coming out as what? Ferrous ions. Okay, it will come out as what? Ferrous ions. But in corrosion, in the rust, iron is not in ferrous form, it will be in ferric form. Now what happened? This ferrous ions, the ferrous ions which are produced, which are further oxidized by air or oxygen that was present in the atmosphere, atmospheric oxygen. It will be oxidized by atmospheric oxygen in the presence of humidity, and they forms what? Fe plus 3. So ferrous ions are converting into what? Ferric ions by the presence of atmospheric oxygen. Now this ferric ions are involving in the formation of ferric oxide, Fe3O2, ferric oxide, Fe3O2 and Fe2O3, and having combining with X moles of water. So this is what we call it as rust, brown in color. Brown colored rust formation takes place. This is the actual process taking place during the rusting of iron. Yes, how can we prevent? Prevention of rusting. How can we prevent? They may ask you the question on this one. Prevention. Yes, tell me, how can we prevent the rusting? So one thing is what? So by coating with, by painting we can prevent the rusting of iron. Next one, by coating with, electroplating with zinc and tin. Okay, if you coat the surfaces and electroplating with zinc and tin on the surface of iron, we can prevent the rusting of iron. Next one, by plating with sacrificial metals, that is magnesium and zinc. Okay, especially in the bottom of the ship, to prevent the rusting of this iron, they coat with magnesium, so that it will magnesium. First of all, what happens? How it will prevent? It is a sacrificial metal. Before the iron will rust, okay, it will come forward and it will sacrifice their life. Means it will first rust. After the complete rusting of the magnesium, thereafter the rusting of iron will take place. That is why we call this sacrificial metals like magnesium and zinc. And by coating with a bithiol, okay, bithione. So these all are prevention methods of corrosion. So I hope you understood this electrochemistry well. So go through the questions, no problems. So if you have any doubt in the problems while you are solving, just give a comment. I will give you the okay. Thank you.